So our subject for today, as I mentioned before, is attachment, or actually non-attachment. How can we not be attached to things? And I have to start off by saying, when I say anything to you, I'm saying it to myself. You ever noticed when you do this and point to somebody, you got at least 3 fingers pointing back at yourself? So we all have problems with attachment because we're human. And humans are driven by emotions and feelings, and we get locked in, we get tied in, we get bound to certain things in our life. And I like to say that attachment comes in 4 different flavors. All right, it's not vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, okay? But it's attachment to material things and wealth, attachment to your own ideas or opinions, attachments to certain specific results or outcomes, and then finally, unhealthy attachments to people. So I want to just talk about those 4 different things for a moment. But let me set this up by giving you a few thoughts from some of our wise individuals that went before us. So the first is from the dictionary. I think it went before us. It was there when I was born. So the dictionary says that an attachment is a feeling that binds one to a person, a thing, a cause, an ideal, or the like. So it's binding. That's the key word right there. According to Yogananda, it's not possible to attain happiness without non-attachment. That's a heavy statement. The Buddha said, the root of all suffering, not some suffering, all suffering is attachment. Wow, another really heavy statement. And the Dalai Lama said, and there's something in here that's even more interesting, most of our troubles are due to our passionate desire for the attachment to things that we misapprehend as having enduring entities, as being enduring entities. In other words, everything's temporary. What's here today may be gone tomorrow. And so we get locked into these things that are just temporary, and it really doesn't matter. Well, it does matter if we're attached to it. So let's explore those. Let's first talk about this one. Have you ever had an argument with anybody? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. We have a few honest people in here and a bunch of liars. Okay. We've all argued with somebody. But what is an argument? An argument basically stems from or emanates from our attachment to an idea or an opinion. And unfortunately, in today's world, those ideas or opinions are not usually self-made. We absorb them from television, we absorb them from newspapers and radios and everything else, and we've never really thought about those attachments to those ideas and opinions. I would tell you a story now about Elena and I when we first met, but it's a little too personal to share. But I learned a very good lesson from Elena when we first met and had our first argument. So it actually turned out to be wonderful. So I married her, didn't I? So this is a problem in our society today, though. Look at how many different opinions there are. The problem is nobody has any tolerance for opinions anymore. What happens is if Heiko doesn't believe exactly like I do, then I defriend him or I ignore him. That's not true, though, Heiko. But that's the way the world is doing this today. It's like we're not tolerant of other people's opinions. We don't listen to what other people actually say. We don't listen to their point of view. We're so attached to our own opinions on our own ideas. Sometimes we have such strong attachments that we can actually argue with God. When God tells us to do something, we go, no, that's not really the way it goes. It goes like this. I want to share a story because I thought this really fit this subject well. I have to read this. I apologize. As the night fell heavy in the heights of the mountains, a climber got lost and could not see anything. All was black and there was zero visibility. The moon and the stars were covered by the clouds. He continued to climb, but he was totally disoriented, but only a few feet away from the very top of the mountain. And suddenly he slipped and fell into the air, falling at great speed. He could only see black spots as he went down and the terrible sensation of being sucked down by gravity. But he kept falling, and in the moments of great fear, it came to his mind all the good and bad things of his life. He was thinking now about how close death was getting, when all of a sudden he felt the rope tied around his waist pull him very hard, and he came to a complete stop, his body dangling in the air. Only the rope was holding him, and in that moment of stillness, he had no other choice but to scream, "Help me, God, help me." All of a sudden, a deep voice came from the heavens. "What do you want me to do?" "Save me, God." God replied, "Do you really think I can save you?" "Of course I believe you can." The answer from God was, "Then cut the rope tied to your waist." There was a moment of silence, and the man thought for a moment, decided to hold on to the rope with all his strength. The next morning, the rescue team reported that a climber was found dead and frozen, his body hanging from a rope 12 inches from the ground. Ouch. So, have you ever gotten angry about something that didn't turn out the way you had planned? Have you ever gotten angry about having a different result than you had seen it in your own mind? We've all done that. If I did a show of hands, we'd see who was telling the truth and who were liars today. But we've all had that happen. And I have an event that happened just a week ago that illustrates this in my mind. I'm remodeling a kitchen. We bought a new home up in the mountains, and I'm remodeling the kitchen, and I had to build some new spaces in cabinets and do some trim work. And I'd done it all with a finishing nail, with a gun. And I got to last week, and I was sanding, getting ready to paint. And as I pressed the sander into the trim, a piece fell off on the floor. And it's like, oh, great. Anyway, I lost my temper. And I started to swear at the piece of wood that was at my feet. It's just sitting there innocently with a couple of finishing nails sticking out, but I'm swearing at this inanimate object. And all of a sudden, I found myself laughing. And I realized, this is an easy fix. I really don't need to be attached to this outcome. I can just glue this back up with carpenter's glue and it'll be fine. And 30 minutes later, I was sanding it. It was just fine. But we get attached to outcomes, and then we get angry that it didn't turn out the way we wanted to. So have you ever been sad or angry over some material thing, some material goods, something you couldn't buy, something that was beyond your reach, or something you had or owned that was damaged or ruined or stolen? We've all had that experience. Our sadness and anger is because of our attachment to those material possessions. And we've all experienced that. We've seen our children, when they're playing with a toy or something like that, another kid comes and takes the toy. They're attached with that toy right there. You take it away from them, and they have sadness, they have anger, they have, they can get naughty, okay? So I wanted to share with you a story that illustrates the other side of this particular idea. Instead of getting angry at the loss of material goods, what would it be like if you were a person that had absolutely no attachment to material goods in your life? And I have to say, as a veteran of Sunburst now, what are we at, 12 years now, Elena? My life has changed with attachment to material goods. I used to be, got to have the newest one, got to have the shiniest one, got to have the prettiest one. I could care less anymore. It's like, I just want to be content, I want to be happy, I want to breathe. You know, those are the main things. And so living in a community like this and being influenced by the people that have lived here for 50 years has had a great impact on my life. This story is from the life of Yogananda, so you'll appreciate this one. After some time in America, I took to dressing normally in public. So I want you to picture this for a moment. He came to the United States in 1920, dressed in ochre-colored robes with long flowing hair. It just wasn't something people were used to seeing on the streets of Boston or New York City. And so he took to actually being a little bit more conservative, pulling his hair back, wearing a hat in public, and then he wanted to get an overcoat. And so one of his followers offered to buy him an overcoat. And he said, and I accepted it with thanks. When I saw what he wanted to buy me, however, I said, oh, that's way too good for me. But he insisted on buying it, and he also bought me this beautiful, expensive hat to go with it. I always felt uncomfortable however, when I was decked out in all this splendor. Divine Mother, I prayed, this coat is too good for me. Please take it away. Sometime later, I entered a restaurant. I left my coat on a hook by the door with all the other coats, and I placed my hat on the shelf above the hooks. As I left afterward, I found that my coat had been stolen. What a relief. And then I saw the hat was still sitting there, and I said, Divine Mother, I prayed, you forgot the hat. So that really is a true story of someone who's not attached to his material goods. So that's what we would like to be able to attain in our own lives. Have you ever agonized over a coworker who transfers to another company or leaves the company? Yeah, those of us, I've had employees for, well, more years than I want to say, but I've always been sad when employees leave. As an employer, it's hard to find good people. When good people leave, you have feelings, you have emotions, you have history with them. It's really hard, and then you have to start all over again. Some of you have lost a friend. Maybe the friend moves away, or worse yet, they pass away. Or you've broken up with a partner, or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a friendship has gone a little bit sour. We've all had that experience. This is called life. We're all learning this. But our agony is because we're attached to the emotions or feelings we have when we're with that person. Think about that for a minute. We're attached to the feeling or emotion we have when we're with that person. That can be unhealthy at times. Emotional attachments can be great, but they can also be unhealthy. For instance, if somebody decides, their partner tells them they want to be like this, and they want you to be dressed this way and look this way and act this way, suddenly you're becoming a person you're really not. And that is a recipe for sorrow and disaster. Sometimes we believe that the people we know, the people we are related to, the people that we are partnered with, if we ever lost them, our life couldn't go on. This person is so important to us that the loss of that person in our life would cause this great empty void. That's attachment to the feeling and emotion you have with that person. That's not necessarily bad, but it can be if you don't recover from it. So I want to share with you an interaction that Buddha had with one of his followers over this same subject. And I apologize, I have to read this because it's in words that I normally wouldn't come out of my mouth. One day a young man came to see Buddha. He was very upset. He asked Buddha, "Oh Lord, please tell me why I suffer so much. I can't bear the sorrow of my life or think about the loss of my loved ones. Please tell me what to do." And Buddha looked at the man with compassion and said, "Do you have a son?" And he answered, "Yes, I have a son." "Does your brother have a son?" "Yes, he does have a son." "Does your neighbor have a son?" "Yes, they do." "Are there people that you don't know that have sons?" He said, "Of course. Every person probably has sons." So then he said, "Tell me, if your son dies, how sad will you be?" And suddenly it hit him. It's like, I would feel incredibly sad. I would not be able to bear the news. I would feel like my entire world had collapsed. I can't even imagine that situation. We've all felt that before too. And they said, "Well, what if your brother's son dies? How sad will you be?" "Well, I'd be extremely sad, but not as sad as I would if it was my own son." And then he went on, "Well, what about if one of the persons that you know has a son that dies, how would you feel?" "Well, I'd feel bad, and I feel bad for them." "What about if somebody you don't know loses a son, how sad would you be?" "Well, I probably wouldn't be sad at all." And Buddha said, "So then the extent of sadness is relative to what?" As a question. And after thinking for a moment, the young man replied, "Lord, that level of sadness is relative to me or mine." In other words, it's relative to what I think belongs to me, what I'm attached to, the people that I'm attached to. The more I hold on to something as my own, the more I will be sad. What an interesting insight. Buddha says, It means you get sorrow from those that you consider to be yours. The man said, yes, that's right. Very well. Now tell me one more thing. When you go to the beach, does your son like to build sandcastles? He goes, yes, he does. When the ocean comes in and breaks down your sandcastles, does your son cry? Well, yes, he does. Why does he cry? The child cries because he thinks that the castle is pretty and permanent and it's his. Buddha said, it means your son is attached to it. Did you cry when his sandcastle was washed away by the ocean? No, Lord, I didn't. And Buddha asked, why don't you cry? Buddha said, the man said, because I know the sandcastle is not permanent, it is not mine, and I do not cry when the waves break it down. And Buddha said, now you understand that the root of your sorrow is attachment. If you do not see the truth as it is, you will keep on suffering like this in an endless world. There's no difference between you and the kids who cry when their sandcastles are swept away by the waves. I just found that to be a beautiful story and illustrates how difficult it is when we're attached to other people. So we're going to move into our meditative state now. So I'd like you to, those of you that have a meditation technique, go ahead and practice it. Those of you that don't have a meditation technique, sit up straight. Keep your feet on the floor unless you're sitting. That could be kind of difficult. Close your eyes, and we'll focus on your breath. Focus on your inhale, and then focus on your exhale. And Claudia is going to lead us into meditation, and we'll take approximately 15 to 20 minutes of meditation, and then I'll return with more thoughts. welcome back from meditation. I have a few other thoughts that I wanted to share about this subject of non-attachment. And remember, the topic was actually the freedom of non-attachment. So I want to put that in a light that we can all kind of understand what that freedom means. All of us in this room want to be happy. I think all of us do. And we pin our happiness quite often on our circumstances, on how the people are around us, on what we have, what we own, on our ideas and opinions that we've worked so hard to get by watching television. Sorry, that was sarcastic. But, we also stress. The other side of that is we stress about losing our relationships. We stress about losing our jobs, being laid off, losing our material goods, having somebody not agree with our opinions. So that brings us some pain, some frustration. So the question I really wanted to answer today is, how do we dissolve attachments? We all have them. How do we dissolve them? And I thought, I'll give these guys a huge laundry list of 30 things they can do. And then as I thought about it, meditated about it, I realized one thing, meditation. So in scientifically applied Kriya Yoga meditation, which we teach here at Sunburst, we learn to be in the present, to be in the now. In meditation, we forget and drop the past. We don't worry about the future. We're right here, now, in meditation. As we continue to grow in meditation, we begin to understand who we really are. Whole purpose of meditation, to discover our true self. Who are we? Are we connected to every other living thing in this universe? Is God within us? We start to learn these things. And we also begin to realize that this incarnation that we're in right now, it's temporary. We may have lived thousands of incarnations before, and we may live thousands of incarnations after this one. So everything we're attached to in this life is temporary anyway. But once we get to a position through meditation, and meditation will take you there, you have the ability to let go of these attachments. You have the ability to let Spirit bring to your life what you have earned and deserve, instead of you trying to grasp and bind and collect everything yourself. And it makes you a happier person. I want to share another story. I'm a storyteller, sorry. I want to share another story, though, that illustrates the importance of letting go. So in Southeast Asia, scientists and hunters go into the jungles and capture monkeys for zoos and also for research. And one of the techniques they've used for centuries in the Southeast Asian jungles is they'll take a coconut and cut a hole in the top, and then they'll take all the meat out of it and they'll drop into it food, like a piece of a banana, cut a banana in half or something like that, or other smelly, stinky food that animals can smell. And they'll tie that coconut to a tree. And so later on, a monkey comes by, smells that delicious food, sticks his hand through the hole like this, grabs the food inside the coconut with a fist. Now he can't get his hand out of the coconut. What does a monkey do? It stays there for hours and hours till the hunter comes back, still holding on to that thing that they so desire. And as a result, the hunter throws a net over him, and he's put in a cage, and he's on a ship to somewhere in the world. How many bananas are we holding on to in our life? That if we just let go, we'd have freedom. We would have happiness. This is not a new issue. This is not something for 2022. because Krishna tried to educate Arjuna about this very thing. And I just want to share a few lines from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna teaches this: grasping too tightly to the things of this world, attachments arise. Holding on to how we want it to be, anger is born. Sound familiar? I think I just said that about a half hour ago. Not understanding the inevitability of change, confusion clouds the mind. Meet this transient world with neither grasping or fear. Trust the unfolding of life. Trust Spirit to bring to you what you desire, in other words, and you will attain true serenity or happiness. Please join me in prayer. O great Father, O Divine Mother, we love you, our divine parents. We're thankful for this opportunity today to sit among those who have like-minded thoughts. And are reaching for a higher purpose in their life. Bless us each, that we can recognize those things and people that we're attached to. And we can learn to let go of those that need to be let go of. Amen.